How do we know what we know? And what is the difference between our beliefs, opinions, and ways that we justify what we consider the truth? If we want to learn anything meaningfully, we need to learn how to move away from being receptors of information to constructors of knowledge. One of the ways to do this is to rebuild our relationship with the media that we consume. The music we listen to, the films we watch, the books we read, these are all part of our brain's diet. If you feed it with insubstantial, nutrition-deficient food, the result is brain fog and digital amnesia. All of this information passes through us and turns us into unwilling bystanders of our own heads. We may be emotionally reactive to the media in the moment, but it leaves us with hordes of fragmented ideas in our head, like a looming pile of laundry that has yet to be sorted. When we don't know what to do with that information, it just sits there, occupying space, starts to reek, and deteriorates. This is not knowledge, that is simply information in a pile. Today, I'd like to introduce you to the theory of knowledge and how it can elevate your journaling experience by sharpening your mental clarity, building an intellectual immune system, and establishing a real relationship with your mind. Those of you who have done the IB program in school may be familiar with this concept, but I think it needs to be more accessible and widespread. So the main question that TOK asks is, how do you know what you know? The first are the areas of knowledge. This is ethics, history, maths, the arts, natural sciences, human sciences, religious knowledge systems, and indigenous knowledge systems. These are all, in their own right, knowing. The second are ways of knowing. What are you using so that you know that? Examples of this would be your reason, intuition, imagination, emotion, language, memory, sense perception, and faith. Stick with me here. To understand these concepts, let's set a case study. Today, I have chosen the poem Still I Rise by the incredible Maya Angelou. I have linked the spoken version of this in the description, and I highly recommend giving it a listen. She speaks with an incredible attitude, and you'll feel the momentum as you listen to her. So I begin on this left side here with an analysis of the poem. I examine the literary devices that she uses and extract the key ideas. Please pause if you would like to read. Point out a few of the literary devices that she uses in this: command and rhetoric, alternating rhyme schemes, anaphora, rhythmic chants, similes as symbols of resistance, kinetic and auditory imagery. There is a lot to unpack here. On the right side of this page, this is where I will do the first, let's say, superficial processing of this information. It allows me to process the emotional and interpersonal reactions. By decompressing my emotion, it gives me the space to react to the immediate response my brain has to the medium. After I've given myself the time to react to the poem, I go into spending time looking at the intellectual side. And this is purely just a processing process. This isn't an argument building process. If you guys are interested in that, I can also do that. Let me know. So here I'm really just trying to sort out my thoughts. I identified, this is involving Maya Angelou. I underlined that. Language is the device that she uses. Resistance and self-embodiment are kind of the main topics. The initial response to this is that I absolutely adore the way that she reads it. There is this rhythm and attitude that makes you feel really inspired as you listen to her speak. But if I were to move on from this point directly to the next piece of media, all of that knowledge remains temporary. The solution to this is to analyze and connect. What lesson do I learn from reading this? So on the right-hand side of this notebook, I place the key words. So I have narrative, resilience, resistance, and redefining. On the top here, I have the context, and here I have how language is used in redefinition. To apply the theory of knowledge, the area of knowledge that this covers is history, because a lot of the context in which she's writing in this poem is very important. And the way of knowing is language. This is the type of information that you are processing by reading this piece of medium. You can tell that this is an active reclamation of her right to define herself. She's not allowing the opposing narrative to define her own worth. And this is how she does it. She commands and places rhetoric. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. That also shows you the context in which this was written in. The similes and symbols of resistance, for example, are "but still like dust I'll rise." The whole thing is a conversation with the opposition. You can see in the second stanza, she's asking these questions. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping. In the second two lines are her positioning herself and like taking up the space that she deserves to take up. The language used in her process of redefinition, you will see a lot of imagery of like abundance, and there's like this tone of certainty to which that she talks about things. So you will hear oil wells, hope springing high, gold mines, diamonds. All of these are also so highly contextualized so that they're accessible to her. These things are found in her living room, in her own backyard, at the meeting of her thighs. In the 8th stanza, there is a change in line structure and pace. You feel the kinetic energy, you feel the confidence building up, and the momentum like increases. And then she stops using similes and actually employs metaphors. She is the embodiment of what she says and is no longer just like it. So for example, because I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. She uses like here. In this stanza, I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, barren the tide. She is this grand ocean. And with repetition and this like really definitive tone of voice, she positions herself in triumph over her opposition. I rise, I rise, I rise. And it's also interesting to see how she repeats I rise 7 times in this last part, and it combats the 7 previous stanzas. And so what do we take out of this? This is where the magical post-it comes in. To make knowledge actually last and meaningful, not to stop at analysis, but to apply it to yourself or contexts that are closer to you. This is what your brain actually registers as a memory and as evidence of you learning something. This is the main things that I take away from Maya Angelou. I said in my life application that Maya Angelou reminds me of my power to define myself, to walk the path of visibility, steady and strong regardless of non-believers. And the tools that I can employ based on what I've read is to talk about myself through embodiment using metaphors. Speak with I am terms, not I am like. There's also repetition and resilience. If I keep going at it and keep making evidence, then there is more to prove that what I say is true. And the third is the tonal shifts and trusting my own momentum. This is what actually stays in your mind. And if you were to imagine, you would continue on building a library of all of the things that you've taken away. And this is the evidence of the construction of knowledge. I hope this was useful to you and gave you some ideas on how to reclaim your brain, basically. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you've learned anything recently, I would love to hear all about it. I'll see you in the comments and see you next week. Bye bye.